Have you ever sent an email at work, closed your laptop, and then suddenly thought, wait, did I just send that to the wrong person?
Or maybe you submitted a report and then noticed an error that you really wish you had caught earlier. Today, we're talking about mistakes at work, and more importantly, what to say when they happen.
Welcome to ClearTalk English, the podcast where you learn natural English for real workplace situations. I'm Emma.
And I'm Daniel. In today's episode, we are talking about handling mistakes at work. By the end of this episode, you will know how to talk about a mistake professionally, how to tell your manager when something has gone wrong, how to respond calmly and take action, and how to learn from mistakes without being too hard on yourself. Let's get started.
Daniel, let's start with something that I think a lot of people feel but don't always say out loud. Making a mistake at work, even a small one, can feel really stressful. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because work is a place where we want to be seen as competent and reliable. When we make a mistake, it can feel like our professional reputation is at risk. And if the mistake affects a colleague, a manager, or a client, the stakes feel even higher.
And for people working in English as a second language, there is an extra layer of difficulty. Not only do you have to deal with the mistake itself, but you also have to find the right words to explain it, apologize for it, and talk about how you will fix it, all in a language that is not your first.
That's a really good point. Knowing what to say in these moments is just as important as knowing how to fix the problem. If you can communicate clearly and professionally about a mistake, it actually builds trust with the people around you.
Let's start with one of the most common scenarios, making a mistake in an email. This is something almost everyone has experienced. Maybe you sent information to the wrong person, or you included incorrect details, or you forgot to attach a file you mentioned in the message.
Email mistakes feel particularly exposed because once you press send, you can't take it back, and other people have already seen it. So the natural reaction is to panic a little.
But the right response is actually quite simple. You acknowledge the mistake quickly, you apologize briefly, and you send the correct information. The faster you respond, the better, because it shows that you noticed the error and you are taking responsibility.
Something like sending a follow-up email that says, "I apologize, I sent the wrong attachment in my last email. Please find the correct version here," is completely professional and completely normal. Nobody expects perfection. They expect honesty and quick action.
And the tone matters. You don't need to write a very long, dramatic apology. A short, clear, and calm message is much more effective. It shows that you are in control of the situation, not overwhelmed by it.
Now, let's talk about a slightly more serious situation. Making an error in a report or task. This could be a calculation mistake, missing information, using the wrong data, or misunderstanding what was required. These kinds of mistakes can have a bigger impact, especially if the work has already been shared.
The temptation here is to try to fix it quietly without saying anything, hoping that nobody noticed. But that approach rarely works well, and it can actually make things worse if someone discovers the mistake later and realizes you knew about it.
The much better approach is to be honest as soon as you discover the error. You don't need to make it a big drama. You simply let the relevant person know, explain what happened, and tell them what you were doing to fix it.
And this is where communication skills really matter. The way you talk about a mistake determines how people perceive you in that moment. If you are calm, clear, and solution-focused, people will respect how you handled it, even if the mistake itself was frustrating.
Let's talk about telling your manager about a mistake. This is probably the scenario that causes the most anxiety. Nobody wants to walk into their manager's office and say, "I made an error." But in most cases, it is the right thing to do.
And the key is to go in prepared. Before you speak to your manager, take a few minutes to think clearly. What exactly was the mistake? What impact did it have? And what are you doing or planning to do to fix it?
Going to your manager with a problem is one thing. Going to your manager with a problem and a plan is something entirely different. The second version shows maturity, responsibility, and initiative. It completely changes how the conversation feels.
I want to share a personal experience. Early in my career, I made an error in a financial report that I sent to a senior manager. I had used the wrong figures for one section, and the totals were incorrect. I noticed the mistake about an hour after I sent it.
What did you do?
My first reaction was to panic. I sat there for a few minutes feeling very uncomfortable, but then I told myself that the worst thing I could do was say nothing. So I went to my manager's desk and said, "I need to let you know that I found an error in the report I sent you. I've already corrected it, and I'm sending the updated version now."
How did your manager respond?
He was very calm about it. He just said, "Thank you for letting me know." That was it. No long conversation, no lecture. And honestly, the fact that I came to him straight away and had already fixed it made it a very short and simple exchange.
That's a great example. I think people expect the reaction to be much worse than it actually is. In my experience, managers care much more about how you handle a mistake than about the mistake itself.
Exactly. And fixing a mistake quickly is one of the most important things you can do. The moment you discover an error, your focus should shift from the problem to the solution. What can I do right now to correct this? Who needs to be informed? And how do I make sure this doesn't happen again?
And that last question is really the heart of learning from mistakes at work. A mistake that you learn from is genuinely valuable. It teaches you something about your own process, your attention to detail, or the way you communicate, and that knowledge makes you better at your job.
That's such an important perspective. Mistakes are not failures, they are information. The question is whether you use that information to grow.
And one practical thing you can do after fixing a mistake is to take a few minutes to think about why it happened. Was it a rushed deadline? Did you not fully understand the task? Were you distracted? Understanding the root cause helps you avoid the same mistake in future.
Now let's look at some useful phrases from today's conversation. These are natural sentences you can use when handling mistakes at work.
One phrase that comes up a lot in these situations is, "I need to let you know that I found an error." It's direct, it's calm, and it opens the conversation professionally. For example, "I need to let you know that I found an error in the figures I included in this morning's report."
Another very useful phrase is, "I apologize. Let me send you the correct version." This is a clean, professional response to a small mistake, like a wrong attachment or an incorrect detail. For example, "I apologize. Let me send you the correct version with the updated information included."
A phrase that works really well when you go to your manager is, "I wanted to be upfront about this." It signals honesty and transparency, which managers really appreciate. For example, "I wanted to be upfront about this. I made a mistake in the report and I'm already working on fixing it."
One phrase that shows you are solution-focused rather than just apologetic is, "I've already taken steps to fix this." It immediately moves the conversation forward. For example, "I've already taken steps to fix this. I've corrected the document and contacted the client to update them."
When you want to reassure someone that you have learned from the situation, a natural phrase is, "I'll make sure this doesn't happen again." For example, "I'll make sure this doesn't happen again. I'm going to add an extra checking step before I send reports in future."
And another phrase that is useful for keeping your tone calm and professional in a difficult moment is, "I take full responsibility for this." It shows maturity and ownership without making the conversation overly emotional. For example, "I take full responsibility for this. I should have checked the figures more carefully before sending."
Now, let's look at 4 vocabulary words for today's episode.
The first word is acknowledge. To acknowledge means to accept or admit that something is true, especially when it is difficult. For example, she acknowledged the mistake immediately and apologized to the client.
The second word is accountability. Accountability means taking responsibility for your actions and their consequences. For example, he showed real accountability by going to his manager as soon as he discovered the error.
The third word is transparent. If you are transparent, you are open and honest. You don't try to hide information. For example, being transparent about the mistake helped rebuild trust with the team quickly.
And the fourth word is rectify. To rectify means to correct a mistake or fix a problem. For example, she worked quickly to rectify the error before the end of the day.
Before the end of today's podcast, here are 3 reflection questions to think about after this episode. Question 1. Think about a time you made a mistake at work or in your studies. How did you handle it? Is there anything you would do differently after today's episode? Question 2. How do you feel about telling a manager or teacher when you have made a mistake? What makes that conversation feel difficult, and what might make it easier? Question 3. Which of today's 6 phrases would you feel most confident using? Can you think of a situation where you might need it?
Today, we talked about how to handle mistakes at work professionally and confidently. We looked at how to respond to email errors, how to report a mistake to your manager, how to focus on solutions rather than problems, and why learning from mistakes is one of the most valuable things you can do at work.
Thank you so much for listening to ClearTalk English. Making mistakes is part of being human, and how you handle them is what really shows your professionalism. Keep listening, keep speaking, and we will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.